What's up guys, Syiler here with OneLegionTV, and I am back with another guide, this time taking a look at Xavius Heroic. Now this is a overview of the fight, so it's going to be useful to healers, tanks, ranged, or melee DPS, basically everyone. And Xavius is a 3-phase encounter, 100% to 65% being phase 1, 65 to 30% being phase 2, and 30% till he's dead is phase 3. Personally, I would recommend using Time Warp, Bloodlust, whatever you want to call it, at 30% downwards, as that is going to be the more chaotic and difficult part of the fight. It's more of like a DPS race point, basically. You could use it at the start of the fight, but I wouldn't really recommend it. It would be useful to skip an extra ad, which I'll talk about in a moment, but really you want to be using it at 30%. This is going to be a fight based on corruption, so think Cho'Gall from Cataclysm. You'll notice the corruption bar in the middle of my screen. When you get to 33 corruption, you'll have this big swirly on the ground that if you get hit by it, you take additional corruption and some damage. At 66%, there's going to be these little swirlies on the ground, and once again, if you get hit by them, you take a damage and additional corruption. And at 100 corruption, you'll do additional damage for a little period, and then you'll get mind controlled. Now there is an exception to this, is the dream state. At the very start of the fight, half of your raid will get put into the dream state, and they'll basically get all their cooldowns and their corruption reset when they exit the dream state. You exit the dream state by either getting mind controlled, by dying, or by it just fading off after 3 minutes. And then once the 3 minutes is over, the other half of your raid will be selected for the dream as well, and then that'll be it. So you'll get 2 sets of dream states. In phase 1, the mechanics that we need to worry about are Nightmare Blades. This is going to select 2 people, and the way we deal with this is we have 2 markers to the left hand side, one will stand on blue, one will stand on green, and this will control where Nightmare Blades goes. It's basically like a saw that goes through the whole room, and it will hit everyone in the path and knock them aside and do quite a bit of damage. So if we have it off to the side, no one should be over there, and it's perfectly controlled, and only the people targeted will get hit. The other thing he's going to do is summon a Corruption Horror. That should be picked up by the tank in the dream preferably, as it will add additional corruption onto that tank. And you should tank it next to the boss, and your DPS should be focusing on the Corruption Horror while cleaving onto the boss. That's why it's ideal to basically have it next to the boss. Additional damage, all that kind of stuff. He's also going to put a debuff on the tanks called Darkening Soul. And at 3 stacks or more, I would recommend dispelling this. Don't dispel it too early, as when you do dispel it, you'll get 25 corruption. So, preferably you want your healer in the dream to be dispelling it, but he can't take them all or she can't take them all. So do make sure you are sharing the responsibility for the dispels as well. But as I said, focus on the healers that are in the dream. The other thing he's going to do are these lurking horrors. They'll pop up under the ground, and you want someone, preferably a ranged DPS in the dream, to step over them, as they'll despawn them, but also give that person 30 corruption. You don't want them up too long, as they'll target a player and kind of hunt them down. So get rid of those as quickly as possible. Once he hits 65%, you want to try and push him before a second Corruption Horror spawns, as I mentioned in the ad earlier on. And when he does hit 65%, if you are going to get another Corruption Horror, slow down DPS a little bit. And if you do get one, just focus it down as quickly as possible. Get Xavius into the middle of the room when he hits 65%, as it makes it easier to deal with the other mechanics that are going to happen, and then carry on the fight. So Nightmare Blades will now be gone, and instead you'll have this Corruption Meteor, which you want to take to the middle of the room where everyone should be loosely spread. You'll have these ads coming in from the edge of the room. If they reach the boss, they'll kind of pulsate AoE off him, and when they die, they'll leave a corruption pool on the ground, which the dream people can soak. And you mainly want your ranged DPS on them or the melee who are in the dream to kill those down. The reason for that is, range won't take any corruption, and the melee who are in the dream want corruption because, 1, that's their job to soak it, and 2, if you hit 100 corruption while in the dream state, you'll do increased damage. So you want to be getting your DPS to get that 100 corruption as quickly as possible, basically. The range with the dream can kill the ads and run over and soak as well. And you want to avoid any melee that don't have the dream to be killing those, as they're going to take additional corruption. Unfortunately, we had a lack of range, so we did need to assign some DPS, some melee, to go and kill those ads. But, generally that shouldn't happen. He's also going to be doing a stacking debuff on the tank, and that can fade after 30 seconds. So after a few stacks, you want to be tank swapping to let that fade. You're also going to be getting a new debuff which will stack again and needs dispelling. This time when it's dispelled, it will leave a corruption pool on the ground, so you want to be moving out of the raid when you're going to be dispelled, just so that it's not basically landing in the middle of everyone. You're also going to get these bonds of terror which will link you to another player. You basically just need to run together to get rid of the bonds. He's also going to do something called Nightmare Infusion, which is going to make his next few attacks give corruption. So you want your Dream tank to be taking that preferably, just because they'll lose that corruption later on. And that will also happen in phase 3, but you may not have a Dream tank at that point, so you're just going to have to kind of coordinate and share the corruption as much as possible. So your tanks don't really want to be taking extra corruption if they don't need to. And it's literally just a rinse and repeat of that in this phase, you know, taking your corruption meteors to the middle, killing the ads before they reach the boss, and getting your dream people to soak the corruption pools that drop off them. And that's pretty much it. When he hits 30%, he will move into phase 3, and you're going to get the ads still coming in from the outside of the room, so make sure they do die. He's also going to summon these tentacles, which will give people corruption. I wouldn't recommend focusing them as a priority, but I would say take the boss towards them as we do, and basically cleave off them onto the tentacles. You know, target the boss and cleave onto the tentacles. The corruption meteor will still happen, so you want to be loosely spread around the boss and sharing that as much as possible. Nightmare Blades will return for this phase, so you want to be taking that outside of the raid, but it's a little bit more chaotic with the boss moving. So just, you know, take it to the side and try and get it out. As I said, try and Bloodlust in this phase as well. And the Nightmare Infusion will continue to happen here as well, so you do want your tanks switching and kind of managing their corruption so they don't hit max stacks. But you will start to get people hitting max stacks in this phase. It's just going to happen because it's a DPS race in a sense. You will start getting the corruption mechanics happening too, like the big swirly and the little swirlies. As you'll notice, the further we get into phase 3, there's just going to be swirlies everywhere. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, just keep that up and you'll eventually kill the boss. It does become a little bit of a pain, as you can see here. We have an ad that's reached the boss. He's tunneling the AoE, and we just had a Nightmare Blade go right through the raid. So those two things together caused us to take a lot of additional damage that we shouldn't have taken, which starts to drop the raid quite low. People start to die, and then from there on out it becomes an uphill battle to recover. And we're starting to get all the corruption mechanics flying out everywhere. People start getting mind controlled, so it does get quite a bit messy. We just had another Nightmare Blades go right through the raid. So if you can manage those little mechanics a little bit cleaner, then your kill should be a hell of a lot cleaner than our first kill. But yeah, that is the whole fight, and good luck killing it. Thanks for watching, guys. Once we eventually kill it in a moment, so you know that we did actually kill it, as messy as the kill was. Where is it? Boom, there we go. So thanks for watching, guys. Look out for more videos coming soon. See ya.